last 4 weeks, we have been moving through unity principles. And this is the perfect week to talk about the fifth principle. There's 5, so this is the fifth. So the first one is, there's only one power and one presence. That is God. Everything is that power and presence. Second principle is that we are innately divine. That's our essence. That's what we are. That's who we are. The third is that we can change our experience of life by changing our thoughts. By changing our thoughts. The fourth is that prayer and meditation are the tools that enhance our awareness of God, of self, of ourselves as God. And the fifth is that it's not enough to know principle. You got to live it. You got to live it. And here we are. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's where the rubber meets the road. I never thought of it before, but I love the trajectory the principles take from 1 to 5. So it starts with what is, what was, what always will be, which is God, and it moves to us. Then it moves to how do we deal with life? And how do we invoke God into that? How do we experience more of God in life? Because life happens. And then it ends up with, you can know all this stuff, and you can study it, you can read about it, and you can talk about it. And this is my editorial on the whole principle, but it's worth a hill of beans until you work it. It works if you work it. Works if you work it. So when we hit the skids, when it seems like all is lost, and so many are feeling like all is lost in this moment, we got to get to work. We got to get to work. Everything. How many times have I said this? Everything has a spiritual answer. Everything. And so when I struggle, I start with principle 1 and I work my way up. So when it feels like everything's gone to hell in a handbasket, I remind myself what is, what I believe is the truth of my existence and of existence itself. That's my belief I go to. Start with principle 1. Start with principle 1. God is everywhere and in everything, undergirds, supports everything. 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 And I know, and so many are feeling right now, that there's an exception, that there's this grand exception right now. Only if you believe that's the case. I don't believe that's the case. I don't. I believe that everything is God. And that there's a greater good always. Even if I'm having trouble seeing it. Especially when I'm having trouble seeing it. And so my work in the moment, the working the principle means I need to start being open and curious about where is God, where could God be in this? Where could God be in this? And there may not be an answer right away, depending on where you are. And that gets challenging some days. I've had some challenges with it, with life in the last, well, I don't know, I guess you could say 10 years, especially the last 5, the last 3. Some big stuff. Threatening to pull the rug out from under me. And for a little bit, it felt like the rug was pulled out and I had nothing to gain purchase on, nothing to hold me, nothing to undergird me. It felt like I was just flipping around out there and life was slapping me around from left to right and up and down and everything and in between. And so I go back to principle number 1. I know a lot of you have heard that story about the 2 little boys in a room full of manure. And one's upset because there's nothing to play with. He doesn't have any toys, and he's complaining and he's whining. The other one's running around laughing and having a good time and flinging stuff all over the place. And he says, got to be a pony in here somewhere. Because there's a whole lot of horse stuff. Same room, same stuff. 2 completely different points of view. What we see is what we get. What we see is what we get. And sometimes it's hard, downright challenging, feels almost near impossible to believe that there's a pony amongst all the stuff. Because all we see is stuff. And sometimes we got to dig beneath the stuff to find the pony. Or maybe the pony's out in the field and is coming back. The pony was in there, but there's still a pony. I believe there's always a pony. I believe there's always a pony. And yes, there were days where it was hard, where I started out as the little one complaining and running around and mad because all I have is stuff. And somewhere in the running around and flinging stuff around, I say, oh, I forgot. There's always a pony. There's always a pony. Calm down. Take a breath. Take a breath. Take a breath. Sometimes the physical eyes are deceiving us. We need to go to what some call the third eye, to the divine wisdom, divine intelligence, divine sight. Because we are divine, but only if you believe it. If you don't believe it in the moment, then it's hard to have divine. It's impossible to have divine sight if you don't believe you are innately divine. This is working the principles. Remember a couple of weeks ago we were talking about, I said, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And we talked about practice, practice, practice. And how do we get to peace, the peace that Jesus left us, promised us? Practice, practice, practice. So you practice when stuff is good, and when you're in there feeling the pony. Said on the days where it's difficult to find the pony, or you don't believe there was a pony, and you wondered, how could you be so deluded to think that there was a pony ever, that you can get back there. And if you're having trouble, then what? Third principle, prayer meditation. Sit in the quiet until you feel it. Maybe you need denials and affirmations. Maybe you need to say out loud, There's only one power and one presence active in my life and in the universe. God, the good, omnipotent. And maybe you say it over and over and over again. And you say it till you feel it. That's working the principle. Being willing to be open, that maybe it's not what you think. Maybe all your fears are not going to come true. Somebody said, most of what we fear never comes true. Because we're just making stuff up. So someone else said, just make up something good. You're deluding yourself anyway. Delude your way to happiness. That's what I was, until it works. Prayer and meditation, those are tools, that's the work. And when I find myself devolving quickly, getting into fear quickly, I know I haven't been practicing. That's the only time I start devolving, when I have not been in prayer and meditation. Whatever prayer and meditation looks like for me. For me, it's sitting in the silence, nothing else, just me with God as God. And I sit till I feel it here and everywhere else. And sometimes I do. I feel that blush that comes up on my body. Sometimes it's goosebumps. Sometimes, I well up with tears. Sometimes, I'm just rendered speechless. Sometimes, I feel warmer, lighter. All of a sudden, I realize I have forgotten whatever it was I was afraid of. All that just vanished. And I'm just in this spot where I got that pony feeling. And you work it till it works. So if that means I have to sit in meditation for an hour, I do it. If it means throughout the day I'm devolving again, I go back into the quiet. I go back and maybe I read a positive book, like the Book of Joy, or any other book that I have, spiritual book, that helps me raise my vibration. I resort to music, so I can turn on music, and it helps me move my emotions, change my thoughts, change my feeling, remind me of where I came from, of what I am, of that God, because I hear God, in some songs, I hear God in the first two notes. Name that tune. Remember, name that tune? I can feel God in two notes. I don't know what, works for you. I don't know what floats your boat. I don't know what reminds you of God. Whatever that is, run to it. That's working the principle. And we can change our experience of life by changing our thoughts. So if your thoughts are giving you hell, check in on those thoughts. What are you thinking? Why are you thinking that? And could you possibly be wrong? Or could you possibly not be seeing everything? Could you possibly be closed? Could you possibly be right? And you still have to find peace. Because sometimes you're right. And we get to make peace of that, or we can choose to continue suffering. What I read earlier from the Book of Joy says that if we will allow ourselves to get quiet, if we will allow ourselves to move from that emotion to something else, we can find our joy again. Joy hadn't gone anywhere. God is joy. Joy is God. Joy is always waiting for us to recognize it again, to see it and feel it. And it'll rush right up to meet you. That's working the principles. It's simple. Maybe not easy some days, some moments, some weeks, some years, some election cycles. I think we're perpetually in an election cycle. There's probably people already thinking about the next one. Because we don't like where we are. When we don't like where we are, we're in resistance. And what you resist persists. What you focus on grows. So sometimes I check in and I say, okay, what am I resisting? What am I fighting? What am I holding? And why am I holding it? So much of the time, it's because I've gotten self-righteous. This is right, I'm right. This is the only way it's supposed to go. Everybody else is wrong. Get yourselves together and get over to my point of view, because that's the only way it's going to work. I do sound like that some days. So some days you just want the world to get it together, don't you? Because we're thinking, what the heck happened? I want it back, and there goes my spiritual tantrum, because I have them, because there are some days I just want what I want. Now, or yesterday. I want it now. And I think the universe treats me like my mother treated me when I was in a tantrum, was it ignored me. The world just goes on as it is. And as long as I wanted to have a hissy fit on the floor, my mother let me have the hissy fit. She just walked away until I realized I had no audience and the hissy fit wasn't working. The world is impersonal. Life is impersonal. It just is. In our humanity, with the brains that we have, with our ability to analyze and judge, we name things good or bad. Disastrous, wonderful. This is the end of times. Armageddon is upon us. When I start using extremes of language, then I realize, oh, okay, I need to rein it in, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. Take a breath, please. Kim, take a breath. There are days when I'm talking to myself. Please take a breath. Please take a breath and relax. And as the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu are talking about in that book, once we start to relax and breathe, then you can be inspired as to how to respond to what is happening. You can think skillfully. You can start to bring up divine mind, divine intelligence starts bringing you ideas, because that's what God is, the supreme idea. Divine consciousness, in which there are unlimited number of ideas about how to respond. And then you can start thinking, oh, how might I now show up in the world? Maybe I do something different. Maybe I want to start a nonprofit. Maybe I want to volunteer somewhere. Maybe I want to donate my money to a different place. I don't know. Maybe I want to go to school. Maybe I want to become politically active. Maybe I don't want to become politically active. Maybe I want to check out from the world for a bit. Maybe I need a vacation. Maybe I need to sit on the beach. Whatever it is, divine wisdom brings to you in a moment where you're thinking clearly with divine mind, divine intelligence. We got to think, what's happening with this? Is it, the monkey mind has it back to the big silverback gorilla, and it's got us by the throat. Our thoughts can do it to us. And you're walking around barely breathing. We are infinitely powerful spiritual beings, consciousness matters. Consciousness matters for you, for your individual lives, and for global consciousness. I think it all matters. And if we're all in our individuated consciousness devolving, then global consciousness goes down with us. If we're allowing ourselves to rise up, then global consciousness rises up too. If we're willing to be open, then the world feels more open. And we can access everything that divine love is trying to bring us. Because it's always waiting. It's always waiting for us to recognize it and say, come to me, tell me, show me, guide me. What do I do now? What the hell do I do now? And if you'll sit and wait, you'll get an answer. The problem then is, are you going to like the answer? Are you going to like the answer? And are you going to do what you are guided to do? Most often, I don't like the answer I ask God for. Most of the time, it feels cattywampus. I'm like, really? That's what you want me to do? That's what you want me to be right now? Really? I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that. I'm not feeling that. That doesn't make sense. I don't know that Spirit's ever given me a rational answer. But it gives me the answer for the moment. The answer that helps me be love more of that divine love, less of the love that has strings attached to it. It always requires me to stretch into more of who I know that I am in pure potentiality. It makes me grab more of my divinity and move it forward, to move my feet. Like the Quakers have always said, pray and move your feet. Prayer and meditation. And you get inspired, move your feet. But move with what you've been inspired with. Not the answers you get when you're in desperation and resistance, but that requires us to be open, and that requires us to surrender to the goodness that is God. Requires us to surrender. And I was a non-surrendering somebody for most of my life. And now, when I surrender, that's what I surrender to. Because the answer always leads me to peace and love. And I still might be sad. I still might have some stuff, emotion I need to deal with. But I have that peace in the moment that says, all right, that feels right. Okay. And now, because I know, because I surrender enough, because I stay in surrender and trust, I know just to do what I hear, what I see, whatever I've been given by divine wisdom and intelligence. But I have a deep, abiding trust in that. And if you don't, it's still going to be scary, and you're still not going to know. But you got to work it. I've worked it. Life worked me. I started working it back. Life kept coming for me for many years, kept coming for me, giving me more stuff. It seemed like I just wasn't catching a break. And at some point I said, I need to have something to throw back at life. And the only answer to that for me was God. Was God. The only answer. The only answer. And so I steep myself in God, God principle, the feeling of God as often as I can. So fifth principle, you got to work it. You got to work principle. Or life will throw you around, flip you around, knock you over. You'll be in the room full of the stuff, not feeling the pony, face down in the stuff, sniffing it, seeing it, wiping it out of your eyes. Yes, it gets that ugly. Yes, there are some days we feel that ugly, don't we? God's the only thing I know to bring to bear to all of that. Be loaded for bear. You know that statement? Loaded for bear. The big guns. It's the only thing that's helped me through. The only thing. It's where the rubber meets the road. The good thing is, we have the power. We've been given everything closer than our fingertips to deal with life and have joy and peace and abundance and harmony and unity, strength, resilience, passion, energy. All of that sitting, waiting for you to harness it. And the bad news is, it's all in our hands. It's up to us. It's up to us. It really is. It really is, I believe. So it's time to check in with what we believe. What do you really believe? And once you know what it is, work that. That's what the fifth principle asks us to do. Walk the talk. Peace is always on the other side of the darkness. Light is always present. Light is always present. So let's take this in a meditation. So just breathe. Breathe and relax. If something's coming up for you, just let it bubble up. Just let it bubble up and over. We can't see clearly if we've got a grip on our emotion. Let it bubble up and breathe with it and through it. It would be nice if we could skip it, but the only way is through. And yet as we journey with the power and strength of the universe, of God, of love. We are instruments of peace. We have the capacity to bring love where there is hatred, to wipe out despair with hope. to find more than enough joy to wipe out sadness. And to bring life where we feel everything we have hoped for has died. Only God, which is light, can do that. Like Jesus, we can be in the world, but not of it. We can sit in the eye of the storm, hold a vision of peace and harmony and unity for ourselves and for all the world. Each of you has that power. No matter what you're feeling now, you have that power. You are that power. We are that power. And so maybe now in this moment, in your heart of hearts, you say to yourself, I am that power. I am that power. Always have been. Always will be. I am that power. I am that power. I am love. I am strength. I am resilience. I am open. I am willing. I am hope for the hopeless. I am comfort for those in pain. I am harmony for those feeling only discord. I am unity for those feeling lost in separation. I am mighty and deeply rooted, like the mightiest oak, with plenty of shade to cover all those in need, including myself. I invite you to say in your heart of hearts, I am an infinitely powerful spiritual being. Breathe and relax into that. Breathe and relax by the calm waters where our souls are refreshed and renewed. allow myself now to be refreshed and renewed. And I return to joy and peace. I invite you to open yourself up to whatever Spirit has for you now. Perhaps now you are called to something else, something different. And perhaps, whatever it is you were already doing, was exactly what you are called to be in this world right now. Exactly as the world is right now. Exactly as this nation is right now. Your gifts, your light is needed here and now. And you are more than enough for the task at hand. More than enough. More than enough. So let's take a breath in, deep breath. Breathing in power and might, resilience, exhaling. Knowing that you have an inexhaustible supply of all that you need for what's at hand right now. Inhale. Exhale, allow yourself to relax into it, embrace it, give thanks for it. Give thanks for it. Give thanks for your power and might, your peace, your calm. So we say yes and thank you to that power and presence that is God, that is greater than anything here in the manifest world. Nothing is ever lost. You are never lost. We are infinitely powerful spiritual beings. With the power and might of the universe within us and as us. And so it is, and so it shall be.